It is a prank on my girlfriend Leslie. So obviously she's not home right now, and I have been meticulously planning one of my amazing pranks, but on her. I've realized that I have not pranked her in a very, very, very long time. I'm talking probably like 4 years, and I just figured that right now was the most perfect time. So if you guys know Leslie, you know that she is a absolute scaredy cat when it comes to anything haunted, paranormal, ghost, devil, spirit, witch, anything like that. She is extremely scared of. And me being the absolutely beautifully, amazingly boyfriend that I am, I decided that now was the perfect time to prank her. And what better way to prank Leslie than to buy 3 of the most cursed items on the dark web without Leslie knowing, bring them into our home, and then trick Leslie by telling her that I'm filming a video about telling a story about these cursed items, when in reality I have them right next to me. Yeah, I have them. And one by one, I'm going to slowly start revealing these items to Leslie, and we're going to see how she reacts. Now, I've been planning this for the last week, like I said, and I've been going in freaking detail, because nobody knows me better than Leslie, and Leslie would 100% know if she was being pranked, because she is the one that helps me plan 90% of my pranks. So yeah, it's gonna be hard. Now, I'm not saying that I am gonna do this, but if I was to do it, I would be sure to tell YouTube that this is all just a script. This is all fake. Obviously, Leslie's in on it, okay? Like, I wouldn't put her, like, I wouldn't stress her out like that. So YouTube, just don't demonetize it. It's all for fun. It's all fun and games. She knows what's going on. She's actually right outside the door right now. Leslie, you good? Yeah. All right, so let's start. Okay, I'm gonna put this camera here just in case, like, if something happens, like, we could capture it. Maybe I'll put it there so it captures this side of the room. Yeah, I don't know, I'm indecisive on it.
Yeah. And this side has all the creepy stuff too.
Yeah. I'll put it right here. Okay. So.
It's good?
Yeah, so if you start making it, I'll sit in the chair. Ready?
Ready.
Here we go. The audio level's moving?
Yes.
Everything good?
Yes.
Okay. What is up, everybody? It is your boy Sherman, back with another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 3 most cursed items in the world. These are 3 items that you just hope you never cross paths with in your life, because they're extremely cursed, scary, and dangerous. Let's talk about it. What do you think?
I'm actually really scared.
Right?
Yeah.
It was good though, right? I hope, like, even just talking about it doesn't, like, do anything.
No,
like,
I know
weird.
me too, because I keep hearing a weird noise in the kitchen. I don't know if you keep hearing
No,
that.
I didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
Wait, actually, I might have, like this.
Yeah,
I thought it was
like,
a sink or something.
Something's like ticking or something.
Yeah, but okay, that was good. So we could do.
Okay,
It's going all right.
Yeah, I actually just heard that, but
I'm hanging in there.
all right, guys. So real quick before we continue this video, I just want to tell you guys about today's sponsor, Free Cash. Seriously, make sure you're here. And guys, I know this is cash out. You a $10 bonus as soon as of the video upstairs. I just wanted to do the intro here.
Oh, okay, yeah, wherever
Let's
you
go.
want.
Okay. So you guys are probably wondering why there's 2 cameras. One camera that Leslie is going to be operating since she is my camera woman. And there's another camera called a Insta360. Oh, it's actually right here. Oh god. This is my new Insta360 camera thing. And it's actually super sick. And me and Leslie got it for our trip to Italy that we're going to soon. And look at this. Boop boop. I just decided that I was gonna use it. How do I turn this up? Oh, there we go. So we're actually using that camera to capture any scary things that happen off camera. That now it will be on camera. So it's kind of like a backup camera. And also she's not going to be suspicious because I told her that.
Thanks a lot, bro. I have it all ready. Hold on. I appreciate that so much, bro. And I know what you're gonna say. I already know what you're gonna say, bro. I didn't have time to set up jacks, but I need to. Thank you, Tiny. But thank you, man. I appreciate it very much. If you guys can't tell, I'm going through some health things right now. So I have like no energy, I'm on like hard medication, like where I have like no, it's like giving me nothing. Pammy is better. The show's great, dude. I binged it all in like one day. I didn't turn it off. It was sick. I'm just gonna say the ending. The ending I didn't like. It wasn't my favorite like finale, but it was hella good though. And Pammy is better. I do like. No, no. No, it's hard to beat her, bro. Yeah, man. So thank you very, very much, bro. I'm gonna watch probably like half of this video just so I can get settled in. I knew that ending was coming. You got spoilers or what? I did not see that coming.
That I really wanted to try it out for a main channel video before we went to Italy. It all makes sense. Like, she's not going to be curious about me having the secondary camera. So yeah, Leslie is aware that I'm filming about these 3 cursed items, but she does not know that I actually have them with me, obviously. She thinks I'm just filming stories about these items, which is not the case. These items are completely fake. There's nothing cursed about them. It's all just not real.
Last thing before we get into it, I am aware that Jax is the same voice actor as my favorite. I know my camera's frozen. Jax is the same voice actor as. Oh my god! I can't think of her name. The drugs I'm on, bro. Medication, not drugs. Medication. I'm on medication. Oh, it's gonna freaking kill me. What's her name? His name. Angel Dust. I knew. Well, I don't know if anybody's. I don't know if Tiny's watched it or anybody else, but I knew he was definitely gonna swing a certain way, but I did not see it going like all the way. I think we're good here. That's fine. Yeah. So I did not know. I just found that out today.
I just got 3 items
No,
that I was
just the way the show's going. Yeah, no, the show. Yeah, the show. Let's just go here. Fuck yeah, at this point. I have this freaking. I don't know what it is, bro. Sorry. And um, I'm like tweaking out. Not on drugs. YouTube. Whatever. I was like, I know this. I know this voice is like giving me some. It's kind of like the same character now that you think about it. And but I never finished Has Been. But yeah, Jax and I can't freaking think, bro. I'm on like the hardest freaking medication, bro, right now. Angel Dust is still way harder than Jax, though. 100%. Was only the pilot voice actor for Angel Dust. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
going to try to scare Leslie with. I'm actually a psychopath. I've been writing.
Let's see who's on. Nobody's on. I haven't played yet.
Stories for the last 3 days about 3 items that are completely fake. Like it's kind of psychotic. I've been just making stuff up using ChatGPT and stuff like that. It's actually been kind of fun, which is why I'm psychotic. Anyways, I'm going to be filming the first story in this room, and Leslie's going to be operating the camera, and I'm going to have the other camera on the table recording the room, but it's actually recording her reaction. So at any given moment, I'm just going to pull the item out of the bag, and we just have to see Leslie's reaction when I pull it out, dude. I have a feeling that she's probably just gonna either faint or she's just gonna charge me and start beating me up. Either way, actually, I don't think she'll get pretty close to me. I think that she might. There's a lot of things that she might do. She's actually pretty hard to read. Like, you'd think that she'd be scared. I don't know if she'd be mad. I don't know if she'd laugh. I don't know if she'd be like, oh man, that's.
I guess what I'll say about the ending, camera frozen, yes. Oh my lord. The ending to the amazing, the digital circus, what bugged me. I don't know if you finished the whole thing, right, Tiny? Whatever. I won't give spoilers away. I just wanted it to be a little bit deeper. I think they focused too much on like one character, which is one of my favorite characters. Like, there's a lot of open-ended questions. Let's watch that instead.
So, episode 9 of The Digital Circus is finally out on YouTube. Since it first debuted in theaters as the last act, one of the main problems fans have with it is that there's a lot of unexplored plot points. I've been making videos on the show since the pilot, so I've seen and talked about hundreds of ideas and theories that fans have had and developed throughout the show's runtime. However, by the time the credits rolled in episode 9, most of these mysteries just weren't expanded upon. This was likely just down to the strict number of episodes and the pacing.
Know nothing about numbers. If you can't tell, I can't even keep my freaking camera on.
But I wanted to make a video specifically going over all the things that were hinted upon or teased throughout the show, and then just didn't get resolved in the end. I hope you enjoy. So let's start off with the past abstracted humans. Throughout the show, we see on the doors that there's a bunch of previous humans who abstracted. There's 12 in total, and in 9, Jax abstracts, making it 13. The main few that are specifically named in the show are Scratch, Queenie, Ribbit, and Kaufmo. In 8, we see the original group of humans during the flashback. After the episode came out, over on Twitter, one of the character designers revealed the names of the humans from that scene, and they are Wormo, Bizco, Ratty, and Spike. We also see those humans again on the mural that the characters create in episode 9. So right off the bat, there's 4 humans that don't get explored at all, being the Cyclops, the Frowning Clown, the Oyster, and the green-skinned character. They aren't ever named, nor do we see their full designs in the show. What's even weirder is that they don't show up in the mural. Based on the timeline of events, these 4 appeared after Ragatha joined in 2008, but they abstracted before Jack shows up. They've basically just forgotten about these 4 characters, which really sucks. You could put forward the idea that they abstracted so quickly that the cast didn't get to know them, or that they didn't get named, but that just wasn't very satisfying. Kane does the naming process right as the characters join, so they would have names. It's also peculiar because when Jack shows up, the circus is in the best state it's ever been in. All the characters are friends with each other and genuinely love the circus. But once Jax becomes toxic, things spiral. However, there were 4 more humans after Ragatha that showed up and abstracted. If that was the case, things wouldn't be so cheery and upbeat. It genuinely feels like they forgot about these 4 characters and retconned it out. Perhaps the idea that they were going for is that Queenie was the last abstraction, but things improved until Ribbit abstracted. However, like I said, missing out on 4 humans just causes the narrative to spin its wheels. It's very odd. Next up is Scratch. He was probably one of the characters fans were most excited to meet, alongside Ribbit and Kaufmo. His surname was teased early in the Dobby Dog hot dog item on the Spudsies website, and he was named by Kinger in 7. He appeared during the flashback at the start, and we see him again in 9 when Kane is in the flashback sequence. Scratch's character was essentially wasted. He was equal to Kinger in programming skill. Those two were essentially the minds behind the AI. His brain tumor is what caused him to create the whole mind file scanning VR headset in the first place, but we don't find out anything more about him. From the way Kinger mentioned Scratch in 7, it's like Kane messed with his mind files, causing him to abstract. Kane reacts in a way that comes across as embarrassed or concerned, like he's aware that he did something bad and regrets it. But this is just a fan theory, we don't get a concrete answer, which really sucks. The scene that takes place in both the past and present with Kane was structured really poorly. Myself and most fans initially thought that Kane brought back Scratch and was using the mind files to bring back all the abstracted humans, but no, that's not what he did. It was just a scene from the past which wasn't articulated properly. Scratch's story as the first abstraction could have been a fantastic way to shape the show's narrative. The characters now are used to people abstracting, but Scratch going insane was the first time it happened. You can imagine the terror and confusion from everyone. It would have been awesome. On a similar vein to Scratch, the mind files don't receive much elaboration or context. Kinger talks about how small they were and Kane found them and got them working again, which is why the humans were added to the circus. In the scene with Kane aura farming up the stairs, he opens the mind files and there's 10 of them. But why is there 10? There were 7 humans in the original cast, not 10. If we include the 4 unnamed humans, that makes it 11, but those don't count anyway because they joined after Ragatha. Maybe 3 of these prototypes were glitched or badly scanned, so Kane wasn't able to transfer them into the game properly, but this just isn't conveyed at all. It genuinely comes across as a plot hole, it's bizarre. Carrying on, Kane just reappears in the void. We don't find out how the deletion worked. It can be assumed that the void acts like a recycling bin, so when he was deleted, he was teleported there, but it's just not illustrated that way in the show. I don't actually mind Kane returning. The little moments at the end where he becomes one of the cast members was extremely cute and endearing, but him randomly surviving the events of episode 8 caused that episode to fall flat now. All of the tension is lost, it basically amounted to nothing. Perhaps Jax would have acted differently if he had known.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't like how they just, like, completely forgave Kane either.
That Kane was still around. He was the only one to be upset at Kinger for deleting Kane. That's just a theory though. This one is quite huge. The Blue AI. The Blue AI, who fans called Abel, was an important plot point, especially after 8. During 9, we see Kane remove him and he treats him like a peer before tossing him into the void. Hey, so Editor Elamau here. Originally, I said that the orb Kane puts in the display at the end was the Blue AI. I think 99% of fans came to the same conclusion, but Alex Rockan revealed over on Blue Sky today that this was one of Kane's world orbs. Like, it's good that Alex cleared this up, but this is just an intrinsic problem with TADC. They keep having to reveal things on Blue Sky or Tumblr because the show itself doesn't illustrate things properly. Like, we don't know what world that is either, it's just in there for no reason. So yeah, sorry, I just had to come in to clarify that. From the way Kane acts, his conflicting and irrational personality was caused when he merged with the Blue AI, but this just feels a little unearned. It reduces a lot of his past actions. Just simply removing that and saying he's better now is sloppy. We never find out the true purpose of the Blue AI, or why it didn't have a physical form like Kane did. Did it have memories or a personality? We don't know, and never will know. It was really cool to see fans theorize that Bubble was the Blue AI, or that the Blue AI would take back control of the circus, but unfortunately those don't come to fruition. Kane also says that he's less powerful without the Blue AI, but we don't see that illustrated on screen either. He appears basically as powerful as before. Abstraction is one of the coolest things about the digital circus. From the way the show presents it, when a human goes insane or gives up, they abstract and become a mindless beast. In 8, we see Jax nearly abstract, going through a dreamlike sequence. In 9, he abstracts off screen. This happens for Ribbit and Kaufmo as well, they also abstract off screen, Queenie too. This genuinely really sucks. Abstraction is such an amazing concept. In episode 2, we got hints about it with Pomni's dream. It's like a virus taking over your body, but the show doesn't ever develop upon it. The merchandise also follows this. We see the characters being taken over by the abstraction eyes. Like I said, it's like a virus that overtakes you. It would have been so cool to see this happen on screen, and perhaps see the characters realize what's happening to them and trying to stop it before it's too late, a bit like Jax in 9. But unfortunately, they all abstract off screen, and they all resemble the same exact model. It also doesn't make a whole lot of sense that Kane can't just bring people back from abstraction. They're mind files, it's entirely possible for him to just bring them back using their original code or something like that. Next is the low poly art style. This is a personal favourite theory of mine, but it's entirely...
Yo, Jess. Justice for Gummy Goo? Gummy Goo, right? And justice for this guy. Bro, as soon as they brought him back to the circus, and he just like, oh, NPC made it, got rid of him. I'm like, oh shit. This game is, or this show's not playing around.
Possible for him to just bring them back using their original code or something like that. Next is the low poly art style. This is a personal favourite theory of mine, but it's what the Circus game looks like it does in the intro. It's this low poly sort of aesthetic, which makes sense considering it's from the 90s. We see this aesthetic in the pilot intro, during Kane's song in 8, and again in the intro for 9, but that's it. Maybe as the game grows and expands, the graphics deteriorate. I always liked the idea that the actual game looked low poly, but it looks HD to the humans because they're used to it. This would explain why the graphics get better as the show goes on. Pomni had just joined, so the shading and lighting was primitive, but by the end she's been in there for months and it looks pristine. The entire low poly aesthetic just feels underutilized. It's used for an intro twice and that's it. What a shame. Bubble is a big one. He was a recurring character right from the...
Bubble was weird too because I stood on it. Not Bubble, the dummy's name? I forgot his name. What was his name?
Bubble is a big one. He was a recurring character right from the original teasers of the show. He vanished in 8, and in 9 he's just floating in the void with Kane, but we never found out what his motives were, or if it was him messing with Kinger's PC in 8. It's just assumed that he was Kane's thought bubble, but that's just a fan theory. It was also popular to theorize that he was the Bubble Boy virus, but that didn't come to fruition either. That theory was so cool, it's a shame it wasn't real. Kane makes a bubble-shaped cookie in the end credits of 9, which is cute, but it's just frustrating to not find out what happened with Bubble. Such a fan-favourite character who disappeared with no fanfare or a solid conclusion. Kaufmo is one of the most theorised characters in the show. I remember when the pilot came out and there were fan theories about him that got millions of views. As his room suggests, he was the first character to really become fearful of Kane. He was scared of him and saw him as an antagonist. In 9, we finally meet him and hear his voice, but his abstraction again just happens quickly in a few scenes and off screen. Jax tells him to go be crazy in his room. Why did he start to see the doors? What was it exactly that caused him to abstract? Did he conjure doors and end up in the void, which caused him to go insane? We have no idea. Linked in with Kaufmo because of the way the pacing worked.
Let me look for something real quick.
And the loaded storyline, Ribbit's character development flies in and happens over the course of 5 minutes. We learn about her backstory and then Jax turns on her and she abstracts because Jax isolates her from the group. What did her and Kaufmo look like as humans? What did they get up to? How did they end up in the circus? They had a dynamic that was clearly close, but that seemingly goes out the window because of Jax. They just stop communicating for no reason and Ribbit abstracts. I'm genuinely surprised that Ribbit and Kaufmo didn't get their own slides at the end, especially when Kinger, Ragatha and Gangle knew them. Their existence in the show is basically exclusively to build Jax up and then they're discarded. It's a shame. Mind control is another recurring plot point throughout the show. Kane lies to the cast multiple times. He has the ability to do whatever he wants to the cast. We see how this impacts Jax. He starts to distrust Kane because his mind gets messed with during the adventures. Like I said earlier, Kinger plants the seed that Kane messed with.
That's a good one, Christian. I didn't even think about that.
Scratch his mind, causing him to abstract. Kane also messes with their minds during running the show, and at the end when he gives them nightmares relating to their traumas. This plot point ends up going nowhere. Moving on, none of the cast can remember their names. This is another plot point that runs central throughout the show. It's one of the most theorized things. In 9, we finally learn the characters' names and what their real-life counterparts get up to. But why exactly did Kane hide their names? We never find out. He lets them pick their own names in-game or generates them one, but we don't know why he went out of his way to hide that information from everyone. You could put forward the idea that it's a problem with the mind files, but that isn't explicitly stated anywhere. Similarly, Kane doesn't like mixing AI with humans, but we don't find out why that's the case. Kane has the power to create basically duplicate copies of the humans. He created the evil versions during 5, but they do nothing with this ability. He also reuses parts of the human's likeness, like the Dobby Dog in 4 and Kaufmo Tire in 5. It would be an amazing horror set piece to have Kane create a duplicate copy copy of one of the humans, or maybe bring back one of the abstracted as an AI copy. You can imagine the terror this would cause. The characters would second guess themselves. However, this plot point was basically killed off spawn for no reason by Gooseworks. She explicitly said that they were all humans quite early into the show for some reason. There were so many different routes they could have gone with this idea, but they didn't. Why does Kinger only become lucid in the dark? So once again, this is another plot point that has been around since the pilot. Kinger is lucid in the dark, but is basically crazy in the light. We never do find out why he acts like this. I always liked the idea that it was a debuff placed upon him by Kane, since Kinger made Kane like a punishment, or it was caused by Kane messing with his head, but that's not the case. You'd also expect Kane and Kinger to have more dialogue with each other. Kinger was Kane's creator, and Kane knows this, but we don't see them ever bring it up in the show. The most we get is the "Where's Kinger" line, which is really cool, but that's it. The point at which Kinger likely would have gone crazy was once Queenie abstracted, during the time before Ragatha shows up. But once Ragatha appears, Kinger is completely lucid. So based off the story, he goes crazy after Ragatha shows up and before Pomni appears. What? This just makes no sense. They didn't lay this out properly at all. It's also really unrealistic for nobody else to have noticed that Kinger is lucid in the dark. He is never seen in his room and spends all his time in the pillow fort. Surely somebody would have noticed. The void was pretty important in the pilot, and then nothing was done with it. Was it the recycling bin? Was it just the default area or background in the game? We don't know. From the pilot, it's inferred that you go crazy from going into the void, but they don't do anything with the concept. It's quite scary to have this giant liminal space outside the map that if you fall into, you basically die or get stuck in, like in a video game. There's plenty of neat ideas to incorporate the void. Like maybe someone falls in there and gets stuck or something. C and A. So this is the last of the big plot points that are unexplored. The next few after are quite small, but C and A gets no elaboration at all in the finale. Again, it was one of the biggest things people theorized about since the pilot, and they did nothing with the idea. We learned that it was an artificial intelligence company that made Kane and the Blue AI, and then Kane reuses details about it in the circus, but that's it. We know that it's an abandoned location, but we don't find out the fate of the company. We don't know what its ultimate goal was, or what happened, or why it fell apart. The fact that there's just a computer sitting in an abandoned building that somehow still has power 20 years later isn't explained. There's a chance that someone else could put on the headset and end up inside the game, but that idea isn't utilised at all. How has the PC not been stolen yet? It also would have been cool to see more of the original dynamic of the first group of humans. They would know more about the game and how it operates, and how to conjure items perhaps. So a bunch of details about Jax are left out in the open. We don't find out why he has everyone's keys, why he's afraid of Corn, why he gets his tail back. You could argue that Jax conjured everyone's
Why is Jax afraid of Corn?
keys in, but we don't see that happen on screen. People theorize that Jax is afraid of Corn because of a past adventure, but he might just have trypophobia. It's not elaborated on anyway. His tail also randomly reappears halfway through the series. There's no direct in-universe explanation. The carnival. So the carnival was the last area of the circus. Throughout the show, we basically saw the characters appearing in each area, but the carnival was left out for some reason. It would have been the perfect spot for an adventure, or as one of the last locations in the final episode. It just feels really weird to have the show periodically go through all the different areas, and then you just forget about one at the end. So one thing is, how do the characters not know each other's backgrounds? It took until episode 5 for them to reveal things like Zubul working at a bar or Ragatha's history with her mom. But these characters, apart from Pomni, have been shopped together for years. Realistically, these are things Pomni should be catching up on, but instead when they reveal it, it's new info to everybody. It makes sense in real life to be closed off around other people and not to divulge everything obviously, but in the circus there's a lot of downtime between adventures. There's only a few humans, so it makes sense to spend more time together and open up. However, with the way the plot works, they do it in a really odd way that feels unrealistic. During 7, we find out about Kane's office and all of the past adventures. We see a couple scenes from them play out during Jax's flashbacks in 9, such as the Snowy Summit. We unfortunately never find out any more info about these adventures. Obviously, it's not a huge detail, but it would have been cool to visit all those different areas. Like maybe from looking inside the globes, you can see how the events panned out or something. With the way the story occurs, we know that there were years worth of adventures, and we don't ever find out what happened during them. A lot of the show is also spent inside the circus hub itself, which is a bit boring narratively. The adventures were some of the most fun parts, so it would have been nice to see more of them. Gummy Goo. He has a big role in episode 2, reappears in 4, and has a cameo in 8, but that's basically it. He's used as a plot device for Pomni and it gets discarded. It's a little odd that Pomni or Kane didn't bring him back during the end sequence. They would have a lot more in common since they're both basically code. However, Gummigoo just ends up being used in every merch drop instead, which is a bit of a shame. Next is why did everyone join on October 15th? This is the date that presumably Kane made the circus using the mind files, but we don't learn why it was that date in specifics. Was this when CNA fell apart? We have no idea. In particular, Ragatha joined on October 15th in 2008. It's an insane coincidence that she joined on the same day years later, but we don't find out why that was the case. It feels like they specifically went out of their way to pick that date and then the plot point went nowhere. And lastly, we have the intro song and the theme. They use it as a way to introduce the pilot and then it reappears during the finale. In the finale, it gets cut off halfway, and since Kane and Bubble aren't around, there's no intro. Kaufmo is gone and Pomni is finally mentioned in the lyrics. But we don't find out what the point of this song was. Does it play out every day? It's clearly something programmed into the system. It happens regardless of if Kane is present. But it's not really used at all. It just ends up being a nostalgic thing in the finale. Like, oh look, it's the pilot intro again. Remember that? That's cool. When it probably could have been another neat way to expand upon the circus. I always liked the theory that the show ends with the song again and then a new human shows up. That would explain what the intro was for. It plays each time a new human appears. Sadly, that never happens. So yeah, that was all the unexplored and forgotten plot points throughout the digital circus. This video isn't a hate video on the show or anything, but more just me laying out a lot of the things that I felt could have been expanded upon. If there's anything I missed, let me know in the comments section down below, and also give me your thoughts on what I discussed as well. As always, thanks for watching.
Kane was so powerful, why couldn't he revert the previous sword versions of their minds? Right? Let's see if we can figure this out. I hear something. Dude, I swear I hear the game playing, I just don't see it. Hold on. Or actually, Fortnite sounds fun too. Hold on. Let's do Fortnite. I'll figure out the game tomorrow. Hey, does anybody know if if season 2 is confirmed yet? No, it's not confirmed and will not happen. Well, they're really not gonna make a season 2? You don't think there'll be another season? Yeah, I guess one is good enough. Yeah, you're right. Does it really need a second season?
Today we finally made it to the final episode of the amazing
Okay, last one.
Digital Circus with its grand finale. This is something a lot of us have already seen thanks to the release of the final episode as a movie in theaters. And unfortunately, also thanks to the leak a few weeks before that, where a lot of people got the ending spoiled for them in low quality in a language that they couldn't understand. Regardless, with the official release on YouTube today, I want to talk about not really the entire episode as a whole, but rather the ending of the story and what it says about what happens next for all of our favorite characters. What's up, circus freaks? My name's Deep in the Box. Welcome back to Cartoon Universe, and let's dive into it. Now, a few months ago, we got the release of the penultimate episode to the series, Episode 8, which is one of the greatest episodes in the entire series, and to many fans, the very best of them all. Episode 8 was a great episode because, as the second to last episode, it's kind of the climax of the entire series. This made some fans disappointed with the actual finale because it wasn't as action-packed or adventurous as the episode before. But of course, this is often the case. A lot of shows have a second to last episode that is essentially their finale, with the last episode itself really being more of an emotional part 2, and that was definitely the case here. Though the emotional aspects of the finale were still much more climactic than the entirety of Episode 8 in my opinion. Episode 8 ended with Kane going on a rampage, trying to hurt all of the circus members, and Kinger accidentally deleting him. This is essentially our final battle of the show. Not that this was an action-adventure piece, but it's what counts as a battle within the series. A big climactic moment where everything comes to a head. A lot of people were expecting a follow-up after Kinger deleted Kane, where Bubble is maybe running around the circus as some sort of monster, or Kane returns actually wanting to do some damage. But of course, with Episode 8 being more so that action climax, Episode 9, the grand finale, is more so about Kane realizing everything he did wrong. The battle he has is less so with the other characters, but more so with himself, and with that in mind, the other AI that he ate. It's hard to tell where Kane ends and this other AI begins, but it seems a lot of Kane's anger actually comes from this AI that he ate, which makes sense as the AI is upset with Kane himself. And it's letting go of this other AI and letting it return to the digital void that allows Kane to return to the circus in a form that's more useful to the circus members, as someone who actually wants to do what the humans ask instead of rule over their area as a god. This episode also opened with the revelation that all of the characters aren't actually trapped in the game, but that the real human versions of these characters are still wandering around on the earth living their normal human lives, while all of the characters in the game are simply copies of their brain scans. Beings who feel like the original humans and have all of their memories, but who aren't actually those humans themselves. This was a sad revelation at first, but once Kane realized everything he had done wrong, he went and used the internet on the computer that they're on in order to research all of the circus cast members. And with that, Kane was able to return to the digital circus and show every character what happened to them in their human lives. And of course, these were very positive things that our characters could all be very happy about. And I've got a really big, 40-minute video planned for that coming out tomorrow, so subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. But for today's video, what I really want to focus on is how our characters go on to live their lives now that the show is over and they know for certain that they can't escape the digital circus. Of course, once the characters realize that there's legitimately no way to actually leave the circus, it becomes a lot easier to make peace with the place you're at. And with the characters knowing that the real versions of them went on to be very happy, they also went on to make the circus a place where they could be happy too. We see all of this in a montage at the end of the episode, as well as in the end credits, with some of the details being a little open to interpretation. To start, one beautiful thing that all of our characters did together was focus on making the digital circus a place where not just they could be happy, but also the abstracted monsters such as Jax. Previously, they had just been left in the cellar below the circus, which wasn't a bad idea as the darkness allowed them to be a little bit more calm. But it's also just an isolating prison where all of these abstracted characters are left with their worst memories. But throughout the montage, we see that the abstracted characters are given their own homes where they can play together and even be close to the other circus members. This starts with Jax, who they create a giant pillow fort right in the circus so he can continue to live among them in his abstracted form. The other abstracted monsters don't seem to be as safe to be around the others, with Jax personally being soothed by Pomni when she descended into his abstraction in order to talk to him. The other abstracted monsters, however, are kept in this new area similar to an aquarium. Here, Kinger is able to come down and spend some time with his wife Queenie. But even Pomni comes here just to check in on the other abstractions, who all seem to be getting along with each other in this new space, becoming more and more harmonious and perhaps thinking a lot less about their own issues because they're all able to focus on each other. Now, following the initial shots where Pomni and the gang are making a giant pillow fort for Jax, we also get the scene of all the characters coming together to make a painting of everyone in the circus who had abstracted. This is done mostly by Gangle and Zooble, as they are the artists, of course. And we can see the wall doesn't just have Jax and Ribbit and Kaufmo, but also the original cast members. The characters like Queenie, the wife of Kinger, as well as Scratch, one of the most important people working on Kane, as well as of course the other programmers. What's really interesting to me is that there's this moment where Ragatha looks up at the mural, and instead of looking at someone like Jax, she looks at Ribbit. We do know that Ragatha and Ribbit knew each other, but it was never really clear what their relationship was. Ragatha is pretty heavily implied to have feelings for women, and while the series makes it look like her interest is in Pomni, it seems that she may have also had a bit of an interest in Ribbit. Perhaps not even entirely romantically, but just seeing her as someone special in the circus that she wanted to help and felt very bad that she couldn't. Following this, we begin to see what the actual life of the circus members is going to be like, with them starting with a very big inversion of the normal dynamic. The point of the show is that all of the characters are trapped in a video game where Kane is something of a dungeon master who controls everything. In this shot here, however, we see some of the characters like Gangle, Pomni, and Ragatha playing some sort of board game with Kane. And with Gangle having this secretive little divider, it seems like she's the dungeon master controlling the narrative, for Kane to be able to experience what it's like to play someone else's game for the first time ever. And apparently, he has a pretty bad role. This is all part of Kane deciding that he needs to invest more in the characters' lives, not just create adventures in order to distract them, but to learn more about them as individuals. So after this shot of them playing this board game, we also see Kane getting to know Gangle, looking a lot closer at all of her artwork. Without going back to the internet, this is essentially the way Kane can gain new information. And while he didn't seem to care what the others brought to the table before, we now see Kane looking at this artwork the same way that he wished people would look at his artwork earlier in the series, such as when he drew this little bee and wanted to show it to Zooble. However, this doesn't actually make it the end of Kane's adventures. As Kane said in the final episode, he wants to open the worlds again so all the characters can go anywhere they want. And now that they have a sense of control like with a real video game, it's not just fun to go back and do some of the same things again, but also to go back and explore how these worlds work, the same way you'd look for the patterns and limitations in your favorite video games. The first of these that we see is one of the sweetest, with Ragatha and Pomni playing baseball. This is really special for Ragatha because Ragatha was the one who suggested a baseball adventure, and she was really disappointed when not a lot of the others actually enjoyed it, especially Pomni, who said that she wasn't really into sports. But despite that, here, Pomni is still just indulging Ragatha, having fun in an adventure that is all about her. What's really sweet here is we also get this funny scene where Ragatha is overwhelmed by the Gloinks and the Gloink Queen. But this also has really special symbolism. Ragatha's relationship is defined by her mother. She grew up in a clearly abusive household, but despite that, she admits halfway through the series that she really misses her mother, even though she doesn't think that her mother misses her. This is important with the Gloinks Queen because in episode 4, Ragatha talked to her and learned that the Gloinks Queen actually has a lot of love for each of her children. She knows the name of every single Gloink, which Ragatha finds beautiful. This implies that Rakatha's mother just saw her as part of the family unit, making her someone who would get in trouble no matter how well she behaved because someone else was acting up, explaining a lot of her relationship with Jax in the circus, with her wanting to maintain calm among all the circus members and seeing Jax as someone who could potentially get them in trouble. In this scene, however, Rakatha is treated like another one of the Gloinks, having an entire group that loves her for who she is, but also a mother watching over all of them and her, with the Gloink Queen being someone of such infinite love because she has so many Gloink children, and being able to adopt Rakatha into the group with a lot of love without losing any for her other children as well, which is the sweetest ending you could imagine for her, wanting to escape her mother and ending up in the digital circus. Now, after this and another shot of the abstracteds in the aquarium, we get a sequence showing what Zooble wants to do with their spare time. In episode 5, we learn that Zooble really enjoyed bartending, and in the finale, we learn that the human version of Zooble went on to open up their own bar. Inspired by this, Zooble opens her own bar in the circus. And what's really interesting here is we see her using 4 arms instead of just 2. Zooble is able to modify themselves, which is meant to allude to what Zooble was like as a human, someone who identified as non-binary and was interested in body modification. We don't know to what extent things like surgery or hormones would have been involved, but we do know that Zooble was very interested in tattoos and even became a tattoo artist. That didn't seem to be as fulfilling as being a bartender, however, because one thing Zooble really struggled with was how these modifications didn't feel right after a certain length of time. In the circus, Zooble is constantly changing out their parts in order to try and make themselves feel better. And while some changes work for a little while, usually Zooble starts to feel wrong again and has to switch things up. We saw in an earlier episode that Zooble seemed really happy when they had 4 arms instead of 2, putting them on in order to wield more weapons against Jax. And here, the arms are being used similarly to make Zooble more useful, but this time with something associated very closely to Zooble's dream, which wasn't just to create a bar in the human world, but to create a space where everyone can be their natural selves. The implication here, at least to me, is that part of Zooble's identity issues didn't come with what was wrong with their actual body, but they felt like they weren't in a position where they could actually help other people who felt like them. Opening a bar isn't really an identity, but opening a space where people can explore who they are and not be judged for it is an extension of who Zooble is inside. And this is symbolized in the circus with the adoption of 2 extra arms, allowing Zooble to work more efficiently to help others, symbolically helping them internally with their own identity issues. The same way Zooble is helping people with their identity issues at their own bar in the human world. And finally, the last shot we see of this montage, besides Pomni just walking off into the light over a tiled floor, is all of the characters, including Kane, sitting together at a table with a rotating shot that implies they're a lot more closer to each other than they were in the pilot, where we got a very flat shot of all of them sitting on one side and Pomni looking straight forward at us in horror as it zooms out and shows the digital circus. With this being repeated here, showing us the new digital circus, which is really more of just a beautiful, peaceful world that all of the circus cast members are able to live in together. From here, we know for certain that the characters are gonna have pretty peaceful lives. They're not gonna die, at least until one day when this computer is shut off for some reason. And heck, that might make their lives even shorter than if they return to being human. But until then, we know that they're just going to enjoy what they have, and especially enjoy each other. Maybe someday new characters will even come in and they'll be able to introduce them to the world not as some sort of prison, but as a paradise that a version of them gets to exist in, knowing that the real version of them is going to go on and have a normal life. But regardless of who may one day appear, the characters will always have each other and probably be safe from abstraction as long as they continue to live in harmony. Of course, there's even more secrets in the end credits for the final episode, but I want to give that its own dedicated video. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it, as well as all the other big videos that we have coming out this week, including the video I'm doing about the endings for all of these characters, as there's so much to break down about what happened to their human selves. And of course, my big mythology video that a lot of you have been asking for since like episode 5. Let me know what other videos The story of the amazing digital circus is one that a lot of people would call very spiritual. The show is, at its core, about the psychology of its characters. And by watching their suffering and even growth throughout the series, a lot of viewers would say that they had something of a spiritual awakening. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the show itself is actually modeled after the real-life initiation system known as the mystery schools that are meant to provide a spiritual awakening for its initiate. So let's talk about the initiation of the amazing digital circus, as well as the real-life mythology and metaphysics that inspired the show. Part 1. The Amazing Digital Initiation. The Amazing Digital Circus is what we would call a mystery play. A performance put on with special characters and symbols meant to give the initiate a spiritual awakening, with this ritual not just being used as an initiation into the group, but in theory, an initiation into the spiritual world as well. This ritual is a formulaic story that dates all the way back to ancient Egypt, and continues to this day with well-known institutions such as Freemasonry. While the actual story used in the ritual would differ from one secret society to another, they all contain the same ritual structure involving the initiate falling from a place above into a lower state of existence, and then having their spiritual awakening within the ritual story as they try to ascend back to where they came. Already you can see how this basic narrative plays out in the Amazing Digital Circus, with all of the characters coming from a human world above and then falling into a lesser space created by Cain, where they have their memories of who they were above, but are trapped under the rule of some sort of all-powerful figure from below. So just like in the ancient mystery schools, you have a character who was first in the human world, but who falls into a lower state of existence represented by the Amazing Digital Circus. And while our characters never ascend to where they began and become human again, they do symbolically rise high enough to see what the better versions of themselves in the human world eventually did with their lives. Beyond this basic ritual story, there's also a lot of hidden symbols in the show itself that allude to it being a mystery play. The most well-known of the modern mystery schools today is of course Freemasonry, which was legally founded in the 1700s but has records dating back to the 1200s and claims very specifically to be emulating the ritual of the ancient Egyptians. Freemasonry is still open for common people to join today in many countries, and despite the exact details of the Masonic ritual itself being a kept secret, there are many details that they are happy to share with the public, including images you can look up online to see the inside of the ritual rooms. One thing you'll notice in most Masonic lodges is that the ritual room comes with a tiled floor in the very center, made up of black and white tiles. This is not something unique to Freemasonry, and other mystery schools and other organizations in general also use this symbolism, with the idea being that the black and white tiles represent the separation of the darkness and the light inside of us. Additionally, two of the most important symbols in Freemasonry are the sun and the moon, which are often depicted as being on separate sides of the black and white tiled floor, once again representing the separation of the light and the darkness. These are, of course, not just important symbols in the Amazing Digital Circus, but actual characters in the show, with the sun and moon in the Digital Circus also having faces, just like in many of the depictions of the sun and moon in the Masonic lodges. It's interesting to note that the moon we see in the Digital Circus also appears as a crescent moon, just like the moon is always depicted in this Masonic imagery. But how exactly does this ritual, and by extension, the Amazing Digital Circus, give you some sort of spiritual awakening? Well, this fall and attempt at a rise isn't the entire story of the ritual, as this fall and rise itself is often just used as a metaphor for a death and resurrection. This is the case in the most ancient of the mystery schools from ancient Egypt. Here, the ceremony was performed almost exclusively for the—
Guys, I'm like, I don't know what to do, bro. I think I gotta call somebody real quick. This is getting kind of bad. I'm like, yeah, I'm about to call it hella short tonight. But I'm gonna try to be back early in the morning. I'm gonna try to call before places close. Well, not the hospital, obviously, but I'm gonna be back tomorrow. I'm gonna figure this shit out. I can't stop itching and scratching. This is bad. Okay. I will see you guys tomorrow. All right. Promise.